Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Almost Dropouts podcast. I'm your host, Daivik, and today I have Sarah. Sarah's a recruiting coordinator from Google, and yeah, Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself actually?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Yes, I'm a recruiter coordinator on site at Google via Nelson Staffing, and I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast. Woohoo!
Yeah, and we're really happy that Sarah could come on. So yeah, let's just get us started. Usually we talk about somebody's journey starting off. So let's talk about your journey getting your position at Google and some of the lessons you learned along the way.
Definitely. So I always like to start my story. I always like to just tell people that I was adopted from China. I
Hmm.
actually was born in Anhui province, and my story starts when I was found on the streets. I was wearing a jade lock and key that was gifted to me by around a red thread by my biological parents. It's supposed to represent that the world would unlock for me, and I feel like given this gift and given this second chance, it really unlocked a great positive outlook in life that pushed me throughout my career. And then kind of going through, I would say it was my junior year, spring quarter, that I felt that I really started my professional development. I was really, really lost in my career. And I remember going to the career fair and meeting this recruiter named Robin. And she was just so kind and so helpful. And I decided to do the interview. I landed the job and I started my summer as a retail leadership intern at Ross Dress for Less. And then it was a really great experience, but I knew deep in my heart that I didn't really see myself being a store manager. And I remember letting Robin know this, and she was still super supportive of me. And it's kind of there I put two and two together and was
Hmm.
knew that I wanted to become a recruiter. And
Hmm.
so all throughout my senior year, I did a lot of different coffee chats with recruiters and figuring out how I could enter into the talent field. And long story short, I actually was supposed to start at an agency when I graduated college, but there were some miscommunications that fell through and I was out
Hmm.
of the job. And it was definitely disheartening just because, I worked my butt off, and
Right.
it was one of those things where I felt down on myself because I thought there's a lot of things that I could have done better, or I was like, why did this happen to me? But this is where I really came with my phrase of it's not rejection, it's redirection. So I could either
Hmm.
let this kind of rejection deter my way of growing, or I could use it as a catalyst to push me forward. And so this is actually where I told myself that I would find a job in a month. And I just started networking like crazy. I kind of upped it by 10x percent and
Hmm.
110%. Oh my gosh, what am I even saying? But
Yeah.
this is where I actually saw a Google Bold intern post that
Okay.
Google was looking for RCs. And so I reached out to her. Back when I did first see her post, I didn't at first just because I did have that previous job. And also I got in my head of, oh my gosh, why would Google even want to look at me?
Hmm.
But this is where I decided to be like, it's what the heck? Like, I'm going to apply and just see where it takes me. And so
Hmm.
then a month later, I was landing some interviews. And yes, by golly, I had the interview with Google. And then that weekend, I got the job. And that's when I found out about my agency, Nelson Staffing. And I am so happy where I am
Hmm.
currently today. I started as a candidate experience operations coordinator, and then I moved into becoming a recruiter coordinator, and now I recruit for the leadership team. So it's definitely been a whirlwind of different emotions, but again, it's not rejection, it's redirection, and I this definitely redirected me into a better place.
Yeah, and I mean, it really goes to show, like, you saw this opportunity on LinkedIn, like somebody saying that, and I think a lot of people can relate where it's like you see one of these opportunities where you're like, why would they ever take me, or what's the point of me reaching out to this person? But sometimes it really can be just that, like reaching out to somebody, even when you don't think you might be qualified for the position, can go a long way, and it really worked out for you. So that's really great to hear.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, I think, moving on from there, a lot of people might have seen this on LinkedIn, but you have a new service called Red Thread Services. You want to talk about that?
Yes, so that's where I was telling previously that I was adopted from China,
Hmm.
and why I started Red Thread Services is I believe that in each one of us, there's a hidden lock, and I want to be here to help guide you to find your inner key to unlock your full potential. Just because I was kind of given the second chance and someone supported me, that I want to be that support for somebody else to see their potential, because I definitely wouldn't have been able to see my potential without someone there to show it to me. Not show it to
Hmm.
me, but help guide me to see I always had it inside of me. So that's how I started Red Thread Services. It actually started, it was a I would say 6 months ago, I had the idea, just because I love helping other people, looking over their resumes, giving them networking tips, just because this is something that I did myself to get
Right.
to, I want to get to where I am now. And then I actually was getting messages from people saying, "Oh, Sarah, like, thank you so much for all your help, your resume tips." I was actually able to land a job. And I that just made me so excited, because I was able to be part of that process for somebody to land their role. And I
Hmm.
was looking on LinkedIn too, and I saw other people around my age kind of launching their own career coaching businesses. Because at first I was a little bit hesitant, just because I still am a fresh recent grad, and I didn't know that I would, if it was the right time to be a career coach, because I felt was getting into my another like imposter syndrome, getting into my head that, oh, I'm so young. But then again,
Hmm.
like, how am I supposed to know how to do something unless I do it? And so
Right.
that's
Yeah.
where I launched Red Thread Services. And it's definitely been an amazing experience. Opened so many opportunities that I don't even think would have been possible if I didn't allow myself to just put myself out there and really show what I have. So it's definitely been a great experience.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And what are some of the stuff people can? So you mentioned career coaching and Red Thread Services, but what other? I know you guys also host events and stuff too, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what are and like what are the different events based around just university recruiting and stuff like that?
So my friend and I, she's a university recruiter at Facebook. Her name's Lonnie, and
Hmm.
we host panels together called Exploring Recruitment. So we've done a discovering your career within talent, and then defining the roles within talent. Just because we've noticed that within the talent space, a lot of times I feel like people don't really see themselves being a recruiter, or it's not really talked about a lot. Kind of like how people end up is, oh yeah, I saw this role, and then this is kind of where I am now. But we really want to show that within talent, there's a lot of different areas to grow within it. So
Right.
we've all these different panels, taking in from people who were turned from recruiters to PMs, and then from RCs to recruiters, and then just explaining the different processes within recruitment. Because I think there's that whole myth that when you hear recruiter, I think a lot of people think that a recruiter does everything, and in some companies that is the case. But then
Right.
majority of the time, for big companies such as Google, they have different sectors, so they break it up. So I'm currently a recruiter coordinator, and then there's such a thing as a sourcer who goes and reaches out to the candidate, kind of does the first touch point if they see a role, and then they bring it
Hmm.
to a recruiter who then goes and takes them through the full rest of the process. So there's a lot of different sectors, and I think this is really important for candidates to know, just because I definitely get a lot of different messages saying, "Hey, Sarah, here's my resume. Can you please help me, or can you send me, do you think this would be a good fit?" And
Right.
majority of the time I can't help them with that, just because I don't source the talent. So I think this would be really beneficial for people to really dive into the research of, okay, who does this sourcer source for, or who does this coordinator coordinate for?
Hmm. Hmm. So from what I understand, so the sourcer is sort of more the classic notion that people have for recruiters. They're sort of like the first touch point. But then after that, after the sourcer makes that connection with a candidate, the recruiter starts, taking them through the processes, and then the coordinator coordinates telephone calls with people and stuff like that. Is that correct or?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So that's a really good general idea of it. The sourcer, you can kind of say they're like the headhunters. So, for
Hmm.
example, let's say there's an application or a job posting, and so the hiring manager needs this certain candidate. The sourcer will go look at the requirements, reach out to, oh, apologies, reach
No
out
worries.
to looking through LinkedIn Recruiter or Indeed or Glassdoor. There's a lot of different ways that they can look into finding a candidate, and then kind of doing that first touch base, saying, hey, I have this amazing opportunity. Looking through your background, I think you'd be a great fit. Would you be open to having learning more about this opportunity? And then yes, then after doing that kind of first initial phone screen, and then seeing if the candidate is a good fit, as well as if they are interested in the role, then they'll bring them going to the phone screen with a
Mhm.
interviewer, and then pushing them on to a recruiter if they pass that.
Mhm. Okay, makes sense. So what I'm hearing is people have to stop bugging you, but I'm getting a job at Google.
Oh my gosh, no. I'm always happy to chat with people, but I always like to say I just get a lot of different messages. So it does,
Yeah, yeah.
I think for me, like, especially, okay, if you guys are reaching out to anyone in talent, please remember, like, we are human as well. Like, we want to help people, but it does, for me personally, when I get someone reaching out saying, hey Sarah, here's my resume, let me know what opportunities are at Google. Personally, to me, that just really screams laziness, because there's Google careers. I feel like for me, I would rather you put in the initial research to let me know why you want this position or how you qualify for it, versus just passing it on to a stranger saying, hey, please do all my work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really fair, yeah. And I think, like, especially, like, university recruiters get thousands of messages per
Oh
day.
gosh,
So,
yeah.
I don't envy their position. I know, like, whenever somebody asks me, like, I'm trying to network on LinkedIn and I'm reaching out to university recruiters, but it's not really working out. I'm like, it's a really hard process for them too. They get so many messages, and so many people have told me this that I can only imagine how many messages they actually get. So,
Mhm.
um, definitely, like, that must be an interesting time.
No, definitely. But I still love it. Like, honestly, for me, I just love being part of that process to help somebody land their dream role. So it's definitely fun for me.
Hmm. And I guess sort of like, transitioning with that, and like, so in the whole process, like, a lot of people preach that networking is really important, including myself. But, as somebody on the recruiting side, how important do you think networking is in finding a position?
Super, super important. So how I actually found my position was through networking. I did not have any connections within tech. My mom was a hygienist. My dad owned an optical store. And so when I would ask her in the beginning when I was job searching, she would just be telling me, oh yeah, Sarah, can't you just send in your resume? And I would have to let her know it's just not that easy anymore. So
Hmm.
networking is definitely, definitely important. I think, the best, it's yes, what you know, but it's also who you know. And so by doing more reaching out and building these genuine relationships, you never really know when opportunities lie. So, for example, with Lonnie, we actually got connected through the Career Center because I let them know that I was interested in the talent realm. And they told me that they had a friend who was a university recruiter, and I connected with her. And now, in this year's span, she was helping me during my search and kind of giving me guidance. And now, in a year, we started this panel together. And now
Hmm.
we do panels, like we host panels, and now we're in panels together. And this is something that I don't think would have been possible if, I didn't keep on building that relationship with her and she didn't keep building the relationship with me. So I think with networking, like I said, you never know what opportunities are going to arise from it. But you have
Hmm.
to remember that you can't see networking as a short term gain, because that's not networking. You want
Right.
to, it takes time. It's like, I always like to like look at a relationship like growing a flower. You gotta tend to it.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's a great analogy. Yeah, and I guess, rolling with that analogy for a little bit more. What do you think is a good way to plant that seed, sort of like? So I know you mentioned you met Lonnie at the career center, but what are some good ways that people can start networking? Either on LinkedIn or other resources as well.
Definitely. So what I always like to do is find commonality. So for an
Hmm.
example, I went to UC Santa Cruz. And so when I would network out, I would actually you can go on the LinkedIn search bar, type in your university, and then go to the alumni directory. And then you can search up people in maybe the position that you're interested in. And then it will just show thousands of different people who were alumni at your university. And so then I would go in and actually add a personalized invite. I always like to say, add a personalized invite. If you really want to connect with someone, let them know why. Because I think
Right.
you're already putting the effort to search them up and connect with them, taking that extra 10 seconds or 30 seconds to write a detailed note will take you further. And so then I kind of go into saying, hey, it's so nice to meet a fellow banana slug. So
is that is that the mascot or for YouTube? Damn, okay.
slug, yeah.
That's interesting.
Uh, but I would say either, love meeting a fellow UC Santa Cruz banana slug or go banana slugs. Similarly to you, I have a passion in recruiting. I would
Hmm.
love to connect and learn more about your story. Hope you're staying safe during this time. Cheers. And then I would sign my name. Or you could go into kind of diving into their LinkedIn. So, for example, if they do posts, like they create content, or they do
Right.
podcasting, or do anything that shows to you, or even like if they do the same sport as you. Like, for example, I know rowing was a really huge thing back in my high school years. So if they did
Hmm.
rowing, like find those commonalities and then let them know. I had someone reach out to me. It was an amazing invite, reach out and was saying, hey, Sarah, I love your motivational content posts. I love your phrase, it's not rejection, it's redirection. I'm always looking to add people in my network who has like a really positive outlook in life, would love to connect or would love to support you. And I think those just mean so much more because to me, it shows that you took the extra time to really get to know who I am.
Hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing is when you're reaching out, please don't come from a me standpoint. I have a lot of people I think sometimes reach out saying, and I don't think they mean to come off that way. But again, if I don't know who you are, like I don't know anything about your personality. So when you're coming off reaching out saying, hey, can you look over my resume? Thanks. It just kind of sounds off, you know, you want to respect my time as well. So if I don't know who
Yeah.
you are, I don't think that would be the best way to reach out, right? So
Hmm.
reach out with a commonality and establish like kind of a certain relationship and then start building that over time. Because I think, when you go on a virtual coffee chat and when you meet someone in person, you really get to know more about who they are and then seeing if you guys have the right fit. I would say like
Hmm.
building like a friendship.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I know for myself. So, and I think this is like a problem like a lot of people have when they're first starting off of LinkedIn, or
Mhm.
even if they've been on LinkedIn for a while, that they think that's networking is just you ask somebody very directly what you want, and and that's it. That's the end of conversation. But I think like putting that time and effort into those relationships becomes very apparent. Like that it pays off a lot, and it's necessary because at the end of the day, nobody wants to feel like you're just using them for to
Mhm.
achieve a certain task, and then that's it. That's the end, right? People want to build a relationship with you and understand where you're coming from, and then build that connection into actually helping another person out. Like you want to make sure that they actually respect you and care about you, not they're not just using you.
Mhm.
Um, so
Definitely.
yeah, like even a 10 to 15 minute call. I mean, that's something I started doing. That's when I started switching up my strategy because I'm like, clearly like this isn't going anywhere, and at the same time like it didn't feel right. So when I started switching my networking strategy to meeting PMs in industry, and just setting up a 10 to 15 minute call with them to ask them about their jobs and their lives, I think that went a long way for me because beyond just trying to get a job, I also want to know what type of mentality and what type of
Mhm.
skills these guys worked on in order to get to where they are. I don't want to just sneak into the position and hope that I can like claw my way in. I want to make sure that I'm actually like bringing myself to that level so the company will consider me as an applicant.
I love
Um,
that. No, definitely.
yeah,
I couldn't agree 100% more. I think that was okay, that was the biggest thing myth to me with LinkedIn is I remember I created it my sophomore year in college and it was through this consulting group I was part of called Gesher Group.
yeah,
And I think you probably had the same thought as when you started you're like, "Oh yeah, LinkedIn is here to help me get a job," right?
yeah.
But LinkedIn is so much more. When you really get to utilize it to its fullest, you realize that at the end of the day, these people who are in the positions that you want to be in, they're still human, right?
Hmm.
So treat them like how you would want to be treated, or reaching out and building those genuine relationships and reaching out, not just being direct, like, oh, yeah, this is the position I want. Because I think in this day and age, it's all really changing, right? Like how we network. Like, I think, yeah, back in the day used to be more direct on, hey, yeah, I want this position. Can you help me? And I
Yeah, yeah.
But nowadays, with just more competition, how do you set yourself apart? And that really is who you know. And I think, you got to play the long term game. And
Mhm.
you'd be surprised by how much having these great like conversations, again, like what opportunities are going to lead for you.
Mhm. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm totally with you there. And yeah, networking's definitely changed over the time, but yeah, it's definitely a really interesting field. And I
Mm,
think, the biggest thing about LinkedIn as well is that, when people create a LinkedIn, sometimes people just have this they think that just by creating a profile that's using the platform, but
yeah.
you're really using maybe like 5% of the platform there. I think the
Mhm.
biggest advantage that LinkedIn has is that people in industry that you might respect, or that you want to work, or a company that you want to work for, like you can connect with people directly and get to know them and their experience. And I think that's something that's pretty unparalleled in any other platform, because like you can directly see what they're doing and sort of get those commonalities right from their profile, and then actually reach out to them directly and get a response. So I think that's like a really important part of the platform, and I think a lot of people don't. Well, like, of course, it's up to you however you want to use the platform, but at the same time, I think they're missing out a lot on some of the great benefits that it has.
No, definitely. I think with LinkedIn, what I love about LinkedIn is it gives you an opportunity to build a network of people who you never really maybe had the resource to have before LinkedIn was made. So again, like I didn't have any really connections within tech, but really all due to LinkedIn and then really utilizing the platform to its fullest, I was able to create those relationships.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. So of course, you're in recruiting, so I'm sure that everybody, a lot of people listening to this podcast want to hopefully work at Google. I mean, I want to work at Google hopefully too one day. So, with that, let's starting off, what is some advice that you think you have for students who are trying to get positions, or new grads who are trying to get positions? And to start off, maybe some resume advice that you might have.
Yes. Okay. I love giving resume advice. The biggest thing I give resume advice about is when you are writing your bullet points, just don't be very specific in them. So, for example, you want to highlight your skill sets. Say you're like a team leader or something in general, like that. If you say just led a team or like exceptional leader, that really doesn't tell me much about what you did. I always like
Hmm.
explain it to say what you did, how you did it, and what the results were. So, for example, you could say, led a team of 5 members to increase revenue by 20 or 30%. That gives me a better idea. A lot of resumes I've seen, I think it's hard because, when we write our resumes, we know exactly what we did, right? Especially because
Right.
it's a lot easier to say over a phone call or a video call. But your resume is what is said is how the person interprets it. So be very specific. I remember I had one of my clients, I was helping her resume, and she put that she assisted a teacher. And I asked her, okay, so how many teachers were you assisting? And then she told me, she's like, oh, I supported like 35 teachers. And I was,
Right.
why aren't you saying that? Saying assisting a teacher just sounds like you supported one person, but saying you supported 35 people changes it completely. So
Hmm.
if in anything, put numbers, be very specific in what you did, how that resulted in. And then I always like to start with, did you provide something supported, like put like an action verb, and then go into ending it into your results.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely those numbers, like that's something I always preach all the time too, and of course, like you can vouch for that on the recruiting side. But yeah, I think like based on like my understanding is that giving those numbers allows you to sort of quantify the experience that they had. So giving a general type of thing, like you said, like assisting a teacher, you don't know exactly what that impact might have looked like, but the moment you put that number 35 or whatever, it becomes very easy for a recruiter to know exactly what you're working, like exactly how much that impact was there.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, it's great to hear that I was preaching it, and on the recruiting side, it's true because, yeah, that's great to hear. Um, okay, so moving from resumes, how about some interview advice that you might have?
Interview advice. So I love using the star situation.
Hmm.
So this is where you explain your situation, you explain the task you were given, the action that you took from it, and then the results of it. So something that I actually like to do is I'll go onto Glassdoor, I'll look up the position, and then you can look on I think it's on the right tab, you can see interview questions. Because
Right.
people, when they give the reviews, they write down the questions that they were given. So I'll actually take those questions, put it in my doc, and then I'll think of using the star method situations that I've been in that really exemplify how to answer that question and show my skill sets. And then another thing I like to do as well is really do mock interviews. I think, a lot of times we like to take things on our own, but you do have a support system, so utilize it. I love having mock calls with friends just because they can really point out things that I didn't really think about. Maybe when I'm talking, if I'm talking too fast or if I'm not explaining something correctly. And then I think it gives you a different perspective on how to answer the question. So those are definitely interview practices, tips that I have.
No, those are all great. I guess I don't really have much else to add. I think you hit most of the points that I have on the nail
Oh,
there. So
oh,
great.
I do want to say one thing too is do not be I think sometimes, we're so caught up in saying, "Oh, we not to talk about our achievements," but during an interview, talk about those. Talk about what you did. It's not that you're being too braggy about it because again, you did that experience. So be proud of what you have accomplished and show that
Right.
interview. And I always think too, yes, they are interviewing you, but you need to remember that you are interviewing them.
Yeah.
So remember, keep the interview as a conversation because these interviewers are probably just as nervous to interview as maybe not as nervous as you are, but I think it's really important to keep it out of a conversational base because I think those are always
Hmm.
the best interviews where they feel as if you're just having a regular conversation, explaining why you fit that role and how this company fits you.
And I guess based on like what I know, most of the Google interviews are basically done with engineers and stuff. So they're probably they're probably in the exact same boat. Like they, it's a new thing for them as well.
It
So
does.
definitely, yeah. I think that's definitely great advice. Be calm, and realize that. I think at the end of the day, like I think you have to realize it's a conversation on
Yeah.
your experience. So don't try making it more than that because I know when I started interviewing for big companies, especially like I started personally overhyping the interview for myself. Like I'm all man, like I've worked so hard for this. Like this is I've wanted this since I was a kid and everything. And the moment I started doing that, that's pretty much I phased myself outside of the interview. Like it was over already because I started overhyping it to that level. And then when I started to realize that these people are just like they aren't gods, they're just humans like me too.
Yeah.
So they're out here just trying to find a good fit for their team, and I'm here just trying to explain my experience. And the moment I started boiling that down, that just because I'm interviewing for these companies, it's not like it's a like huge thing. I think I started succeeding a lot more. So
I love that. No, I had this one experience that really I feel like opened my eyes to interviewing was I was so caught up in like that same thing idea of professionality of interviews of trying to say what they wanted to hear, watching all these different YouTube career devices that I had an interviewer stop me during the interview and said, "Wow, you are like really prepped. I definitely can tell you rehearsed this." And it
oh really? In the
bro,
middle of the interview, huh?
in the middle of the interview, and it shook me because I I didn't know what to say to that, because I realized during that interview what really happened was I forgot to show my personality. I was so caught up in trying to act like this person that they wanted to hear or trying to be this professional person, but what does that even mean, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to work somewhere that really shines your personality. I think that's what a lot of people forget in interviews is really showing who they are. So don't forget to show yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think one of the things I always say as well is that have like for some of the questions have a good thoughtful response, like tell me about yourself and stuff like that, because most of the time it will come up. But at the same time, like you mentioned, if you prep yourself too much, then you're just going to sound like a robot, and nobody wants to work with a robot because at the end of the day, like they're not only trying to hire you for the role, but they're also trying to hire somebody they're going to work alongside. So,
Exactly, exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head is we're all human. Like we are all human. The people who are the CEOs, the people who are the presidents, are managers and recruiters and software engineers, and we're all human at the end of the day. Like after our clock out, we have our own lives, we have our own hobbies, and I think that's sometimes what people forget, right?
mhm. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think that was great advice. Thank you so much. And
Of course.
as a recruiting coordinator, I can only imagine that you've had some pretty interesting stories. I mean, probably very nice, great stories, a lot of candidates, but some horror stories as well. So, I guess relating to that, what are some overall process advice that you have, when it comes to reaching out to recruiters, or just like when you're inside the process, how quickly you should respond and stuff like that?
So I think the biggest thing, especially being a coordinator, because I coordinate the interviews, is please candidates, if you give a availability, please hone to it, because I don't think a lot of candidates know, but sometimes for me it can take the longest tick I think it took me was maybe like a week just to find interviewers, just because with the busy schedules it takes a while to find these interviewers. So
Right.
I remember that I would schedule the interview, and then I would reach out to the candidate, letting them know their interview date and time, and they would respond back to me. I had one candidate respond back saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I actually am coming back from my vacation during that time," and it was definitely it was hard just because I was like, "Well, you did send me this availability, but I
Yeah.
rescheduled it." Sometimes things happen, but I think definitely be when you're sending out availability, just to help the coordinator, is please send your most recent available updates. Of course, we're very understanding. We understand if there's conflicts that arises, so we're always happy to reschedule it. But then I would also say, with the process as well, be patient, follow up with your recruiter. I think follow up is always really good. There's a lot of things that are happening in the back end, so just be patient with it. And what other questions did you have within when you say processes that I could help with?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's sort of like where I was, like, when it comes to, giving availabilities, when to follow up with recruiters, because I know that's also the thing. I've had questions like, I haven't heard from a recruiter in 2 weeks. Do I follow up now? Do I not? And I'm like, I would just follow up, man. Like,
Follow up.
uh, yeah, I think people sometimes, like, when it comes to jobs, right? They have some of these notions that if they, you know, like, they're really scared about, do I want to bug the recruiter, or like, if I do it, will it change my job chances? So I guess coming from the recruiting side, if somebody follows up with you in a week or two, will that take away their job chances, or?
Oh, that is definitely a myth. No. If you're following up just to see where you are along the process, that is not a bad thing at all. I think if you're following up maybe every single day, that might be over excessive, but
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
in a week. Or this is what I always like to say is, if you're asking a recruiter, just ask them, when do you have any updates on when I will find out about my interview and being scheduled, so that if they tell you, "Oh yeah, you should hear in a week," and they don't follow up with you in a week, that's when you can follow up. I think it's always important to ask them, "Okay, when do you think I should be hearing anything?" Ask them for updates on the phone call. But yeah, if not, definitely email them. This won't hurt your chances. You'll be fine. Sometimes
yeah.
it does take a little bit while to schedule, just due to interviewers' busy schedules. So please be patient in the process. I know it does take long, but trust me when I say, just because it's taking longer, it doesn't mean that you don't have a good chance. I think sometimes people get really caught up with, like, I need to have this interview now or else the job might close, or maybe they don't want me, but it's really not that. A lot of times it really is just trying to figure out the right schedule and then working around everybody's busy schedules.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's probably a big challenge, just trying to match up schedules, because everybody has so many things going on.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's like a two-way street. Like, I think a lot of times you hear that a recruiter is being unresponsive and stuff, but you don't hear about maybe that candidate didn't respond for like a week when the recruiter asked for an availability, or like you said, they gave an availability but they weren't actually available at that time.
Yeah,
So
those
so
change.
I think it's a good way of reflecting. Like, it's a two-way street, so don't just get angry at your recruiter.
No, definitely. And I think it's like a partnership in that at that. I do understand. I can understand like the pain points of the process too, just because I've been through it and then I see it as well. So I think, in the future, I definitely do see the job search process being a little bit, I feel like now it's a lot more high touch and a lot more trying to give the candidate a better experience, which I love. I think it's like it's becoming more personable.
Yeah, for sure. Um, okay, cool. And I guess just to wrap things up, like the last question would be, right now we're going through some really crazy uncertain times. So, what is some advice you think you have for navigating through these uncertain times and that candidates or people could do to help them out right now?
Definitely. So I would always say is to keep on investing in yourself. I know it's a really hard time, but if you're constantly prepping yourself for when that opportunity arises, trust me when I say that hard work you put in now isn't going to go to waste. So, for example, like really diving into knowing what you want to do, if let's say for example if you now want to get into like becoming a software engineer, like maybe doing coding boot camps or definitely networking. I always say networking is super important just to put yourself out there, learn more about the day in the day life, the roles you're interested in, and building those genuine relationships. But just hang in there. I know I definitely know it's hard, but you have to know that you are going to get that one yes. You really have to remember that. Like as cheesy as that sounds,
Yeah.
it really you're going to start somewhere. And I think the biggest thing that I would love to tell students is I think with like companies sometimes we get really caught up in the name, but if you like let's say like you're graduating school and maybe you don't end up at your dream company, that doesn't mean you're not going to end up there in the future, right? I think a lot of times
hmm
we get caught up in, "Oh, okay, we went to school to get this, and if we don't get this, then we're a failure." And that's just not true. I definitely, I feel like the biggest thing is you not need to just keep on investing in yourself, but as well as giving yourself grace and as well as there's a lot of things, but
Yeah.
but really honing that everything is going to work out in the end. I think the biggest advice my mentors have told me is everything will work out. Because I was in that
hmm
exact same spot telling them, I don't think everything's going to work out. I'm crying over here. I don't know what to do.
yeah.
Again, it redirected me to this position that I'm in currently, and I truly can say everything does work out.
Yeah.
Best person to be your advocate is yourself. So
Mhm.
remember that.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there, and I think to sort of add on to that, I think one of the hardest things about the job search in general isn't only about actually like getting the experience and applying. Like it's actually just keeping the will to keep applying or stick with it. Because I know like after a while, especially getting those rejections, like when they start piling up, it can become very very hard. But like you said, it can just one yes can completely change everything. So just keeping with it honestly is a huge part about it, and I think that itself, like honestly, that's probably the hardest thing in the job search for myself.
No, definitely. And I think too, though, it's really important to take breaks. Um,
hmm
definitely during quarantine. It's awesome if you're learning a new skill set. But if you're not, don't be so hard on yourself that you have to be productive every single day. I think
hmm
we don't talk enough about kind of that balance, right? Giving yourself love, making sure like you're in the mindset to be productive. So I think it's allowing yourself, like when I said we're talking about grace, it's allowing yourself, if one day you just don't want to network or you're just not feeling it, that's fine. Like give yourself
Yeah.
that. And then the next day you say, okay, you know what? I'm feeling better. I'm feeling recharged. Let's get it. Like, let's do this. So it's good. It's like a balance and it's definitely hard, but maybe I think a good tip is something that really helped me when I was job searching during that time when I was out of a job after I graduated was I grabbed myself a notebook. I got it from Daiso, a blank notebook, and I created
hmm
on the title. I called it "Where My Dreams Are Achieved" book. And so I wrote down my goals. I wrote down long term goals, my short term goals, and then every single day I wrote down exactly what I needed to do. So reaching out to 10 people, applying to 5 jobs, and then I wrote down every little thing I did and when I had interviews. And it's crazy to think that now that when I look at that notebook, where I am today, because I never would have imagined that. So I think it's really important to benchmark your process and then really congratulate your achievement, your small achievements, and it's really important to check in on yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% like I think especially when it comes to Google and stuff, a lot of my a lot of my friends will just be grinding leak code all day for the software engineering internship, and after a while of course I'm not taking anything away from them, go ahead and do that, but at the same time I know after a while it becomes very that's all they're doing all the time, and I know they're not doing that great mentally because that's all they're focusing on. So that's why I keep expressing to them that yes, the grind is real, keep grinding, but at the same time, make sure you're taking time out for yourself and you're keeping things in perspective because yes, obviously Google's a great company to work at and be a really cool job, but at the same time, a job is a job. Just make sure you're also taking care of yourself and you're not completely losing yourself to that.
Exactly.
And so yeah, definitely I think a lot of people especially for software engineering and stuff like that need to chill out a little bit.
I think it's finding that balance, and honestly, it takes a while, but you're gonna find it. So again, it takes time, but balance is key.
Mhm. Yep. All right, well, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on. Is there any last comments or last advice you want to give, or
I would say, well, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Definitely send a personalized invite saying how you met me. So if you watch this podcast, definitely shout out David.
thank you. And
Yes.
yeah, I'll leave Sarah's information in the bio or whatever you're listening to this on, but yeah.
No, I'm happy to connect. But again, like I want to leave with this advice, or not advice, but just this kind of saying is, it's hard. Job searching is hard. It's tiresome. But I want you to remember that your time is coming. There's no due date to your success because everyone's on their own journey. But just know that I'm here to support you. If someone, even if you don't know who I am fully, like I want to say I'm here to support you because I really do believe that everyone can reach to where they are. You just got to keep going. There's really no secret to, I feel like, success, which is really hard work. It's hard work and then just really navigating yourself. But at the end of the day, you're going to get there. So just trust in the process, but more importantly, trust in yourself. Okay.
hmm No, that's thank you so much. Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, guys, reach out to Sarah and check out Red Thread Career Services, that career coaching service that Sarah started. Definitely some great stuff there, and feel free to spam her inbox with her with your
Oh,
resumes. I'm joking. No, we established that during the podcast. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, and yeah, stay tuned for the next one. Thanks.